Order the September 17, 2013 City of Detroit Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Thank you for attending this evening. Second time I've said that tonight. Before we get started, I'd like to read kind of a basic small primer that gives you an idea, an outline of essentially how we conduct business. The board will hear items that they appear in the agenda. If you don't have a copy of the agenda, there are more copies out in the hallway. When an item is called, the chairman will verify the petitioner is present. The city administration will summarize the facts of the case. The petitioner will then be given an opportunity to address the board and explain any justification for their requested action. After the petitioner makes their presentation and answers any questions that the board may have, the chairman will open up the public hearing. Any person wishing to speak on the request should raise their hand. When recognized by the chairman, will be able to come up to the podium. The speaker should identify themselves with their name and address, indicate their relationship to the property in question, such as living next door, across the street, etc., and state whether they are in favor or against the variance request and state the reason for their opinion. We ask that all comments be directed through the chairman, and we ask that all comments be kept as brief as possible and pertain to the matter under consideration. And we also ask that only one person speak at any one time. At the conclusion of the public comments, the chairman will close the public hearing. Once the public hearing is closed, no other public comment will be taken unless in response to a specific question by a member of the board. The board will then make a motion to approve, deny, or table, which means maybe will delay for further consideration later, the request. In order for the request to pass, a minimum of 4 votes for approval are needed. If the request is not granted, the applicant has the right to appeal the board's decision to the Oakland County Circuit Court. Paul, could you call the roll, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lambert.
Here.
Mr. Krent.
Here.
Mr. Courtney.
Here.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
Here.
Mr. Bloomingdale.
Here.
Mr. Clark. Mr. Neal.
Here.
Mr. McCown.
Here.
Moving forward to agenda item 2, approval of minutes for the July 16, 2013 meeting. I note that we did not have a meeting in August. For those of you or members of the board who have had a chance to review the minutes, are there any questions, comments, or modifications to the minutes?
Move approval.
Thank you. Can I have a second? Thank you.
Mr. Eisenbacher seconded?
Yes, he did. Paul, can you call the roll on the minutes?
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. McCown.
Yes.
Mr. Bloomingdale.
Yes.
Mr. Eisenbacher.
Yes.
Mr. Courtney.
Yes.
Mr. Krent.
Yes.
Mr. Lambert.
Yes.
Minutes approved. Regarding our agenda, we have 2 items of business tonight. Is there any board member wants to add an item or request an adjustment to the agenda as written? We'll move on to item number 4, 4A. It's a variance request from Kenneth and Rosemary Luger. Paul, could you give us a brief summary of this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks.
The subject property for tonight's first case is located at 3144 Upton, and this is in a residential neighborhood north of Big Beaver and east of Adams Road. In the overhead, the subject property is outlined in red and also circled in a red circle. The property and the surrounding property is zoned single-family residential as indicated by the yellow shading on the overhead. And that's a close-up at the property. As we can all see, it's on the east side of Upton. Now, tonight's subject matter involves adding on a garage and some living space to the existing house. Now, on the overhead, we have Upton on the left, and they've delineated the existing house and the proposed addition circled in red at the bottom of the drawing. Now, the city code requires that the proposed addition be at least 10 feet back from that side property line, which is at the bottom of that drawing. And their proposed addition, the way they want to do it, is going to be set back 4 feet from the property line. So they would need a 6-foot setback variance in order to build how they're proposing. The applicant has provided the board elevations and a floor plan of the addition to further illustrate what they want to do. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back over to the board for any questions.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present or the representatives? Yes. Please come forward. Hello, ma'am.
Hi, how are you?
I will just need you to state your name and then feel free to make your presentation.
Okay, I'm Rosemary Luger.
Also let you know these can be bent, so if you want to pull it down, make it more comfortable
Okay,
for you.
is that better?
Oh, that's great.
Yes, I'm Rosemary Luger, and we are seeking the variance to construct the addition to our house. The characteristic of the property that makes the compliance difficult is just the angled side lot line, so that the addition would be in compliance at the front, but not at the rear of the addition. I do have 2 additional letters from neighbors that were in support, if you're interested
Are they
in
different?
seeing those.
Just to make sure, we would like them brought up. Are they different than
Yes.
than the two we have? Yes, please bring them up.
Yes.
Good. Thank you.
Also, in talking with neighbors after they received the postcard concerning the zoning variance request, one of the neighbors called to our attention that their home on Oak Hill, around the corner from us, was granted a side setback variance for construction of a garage. I believe it was in 2001. That's at 3052 Oak Hill.
The addition is extra living space?
Their addition was a 2-car garage, making their existing 2-car garage into living space. Is that what you're asking me about? The other one about mine?
Your addition is living space?
Our addition is a 3rd-car garage, 3rd-car space to the garage, and additional living space behind that.
And to state, your hardship is based on the layout of the land?
Simply, yes, that the lot line is angled back so that the rear of the addition is out of compliance.
I understand. Okay. Is there anything more that you'd like to add?
I believe that's everything.
Okay. What I'm going to do is make it possible for any board members to query you if necessary.
Yes.
Is there anyone on the board who has a question for the applicant?
And just
Mr.
one-
Krent?
Just one, at the front of the house, what is the distance, with this addition, I didn't see on the drawing, what is the distance? You said it complies, but that dimension wasn't put on there.
What is the distance from the side,
Yeah.
side or the front, are you asking?
The front,
The side setback at the front of the house. It's a little over the 10 feet. I don't know that I have the exact measurement there. That drawing indicates the 10, there's a dotted line indicating the 10-foot side setback that the engineer drew in. So you could see, the part of the addition that passes over the 10-foot side setback. Is that clear? Am I making that clear?
No, and what drawing is that?
The drawing that's up on the board right now, there's a 10, you can see the side
Oh, I see.
lot line, and then there's a
Yeah.
side setback, yeah, just to illustrate where it crosses.
Yeah, it doesn't show it, well, maybe, oh, there it is.
There it is.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Are there any additional questions for the applicant? I would like to note that I believe you received these all in your packet, but if not, I do have them on possession in addition to the 2 statements of support that the applicant provided. 2 additional nearby residents, one who lives directly behind and one next door to the south, that are both commenting that they have no objection to the variance. The one directly to the south is going to be the most impacted. I just want to make sure, do all board members have these 2 items?
I think the one to the south is in your packet, the
Yeah.
additional
I'll make
one is
sure.
to the north.
Sometimes, I thought
Yeah.
they were, but I want to make sure.
Okay.
In addition to this is that we have, they live across the street.
Yes.
Mr. Paulson, Mr. and Mrs. Paulson.
Yes,
And the handwritten one,
is my neighbor to the north,
okay. What is his last name?
St. John.
Richard St. John? Is that- Okay, thank you. Just want to get it for the record?
Yes.
Okay. What I'm going to have now is I'm going to have you sit down. We're going to open up the public comment session if somebody, a neighbor or another party want to speak. And we may need you to come back. There may be additional questions, but thank you.
Okay, thank you
for the
very much.
information. I'd like to open a public session on this public comments portion of the meeting for this particular item. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this issue? Seeing none, and I want to make a point of noting it for the record, there is no one in the audience in the chamber who would like to speak on the matter. I'm going to close the public comment section, and I'm going to bring it back to the board for discussion. And I'd like to open it at this time for board members to discuss the matter in more detail. Is there any comments on this particular matter?
Actually, I have one. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. There are two variances here, right? There's the one that there's a minimum 10-foot side yard setback that's not being met, but additionally, this sum of the two side yard setbacks has to be 25 feet, and that would also not be met per the diagram on the screen, since the sum of the 20.4 feet and then the 4.0 feet. Is that the second variance? Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, essentially, as requested, if the first variance is granted, it'll take care of the second one.
That's all.
Essentially, yes. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion to approve or deny the item?
I'd move to approve. It's, the problem really is caused by the irregular shape and the fact that they don't want a garage on each end of the house.
Understand, yeah. Second. We have a motion on the floor to approve the petitioner's request. Mr. Evans, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Eisenbacher?
Yes.
Mr. Courtney?
Yes.
Mr. McCown?
Yes.
Mr. Neal?
Yes.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes.
Mr. Krent?
Yes.
Mr. Bloomingdale?
Yes.
Ma'am, you have your variance. Good luck with your addition to your home. Thank you. I'd like to move on to agenda item 4B. Paul, could you give us a summary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The subject property for item B is located at 2726 Williams, a single-family home. This property is located in a neighborhood north of Maple Road and west of DeQuinder. In the overhead, it is outlined in red and circled also in red here at the corner. The property and all properties surrounding are zoned single-family residential as indicated by the yellow overlay in the overhead. Now, tonight's subject matter involves an existing slab that's in the backyard that I've circled here in blue. This slab exists and used to be a detached shed. City records indicate that a permit was issued for a detached shed at that location in 1979. Subsequently, it has been removed, but the slab remains. This is the shed that they'd like to place on the slab, 8 by 10. And in this drawing here with Williams at the top, they're indicating that the slab, and subsequently if they're allowed to put the shed on there, would be at least 5 feet set back from the side lot line. Now, the city code requires a 6-foot setback. So they need 1 foot or less setback variance in order to do what they want to do. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the board.
Mr. Evans, one question. Regarding the easement that exists there currently, is there any, does the city record show any utilities or other features running through that easement that exists now that could be an issue, either overhead or underground?
Are you referring to the easement in this drawing that's at the bottom of the...
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I didn't research that, so I don't know what easements are located within that. However, it appears that they want to put it on the concrete and it won't impact that easement at all.
They want to use the existing slab?
Right, yeah, they want to use the existing slab and they're asking for a setback actually from, in the overhead, the left-hand side here. They're clearly, according to their survey, outside the easement that exists on the property to the south.
Thank you. I'd like to call forward the petitioner or the representatives. Are they here? Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Peter Kavanaugh. I am the attorney for Paul and Linda Ford. I want to make some brief remarks and then also let the Fords have an opportunity to speak.
Sure.
And answer any questions. The Fords bought this home at 2726 Williams about a year ago, and have already made significant upgrades and improvements to the home, the plumbing, the electrical, heating and cooling, and in placing the shed, erecting a new shed on the existing slab was part of their planned improvement. They were aware through their realtor that the existing shed had a permit issued in 1979, as was stated here, and the plan was to put a new shed on the existing slab. I guess they view it as being wasteful to be forced to remove the slab and then move it over a foot, and that's why we're asking for the variance. In the audience, and I'll let them speak, are neighbors Don and Marianne Novak, who live across the street. They're here in person. They've lived there for 43 years. Mr. Phil Rowe is also a neighbor across the street, and he's here in person. And as part of the packet, you should have a letter that was written by Ms. Juanita Webb Glazer, who lives at 2714 Williams. She is the neighbor who would be most directly affected, and I believe that would be the neighbor to the west, if I'm reading the drawing correctly. She's indicated that she has no objection to the Ford's variance request, and I'll let the Fords now speak for themselves.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Linda. Excuse me, I'm Linda Ford. As our attorney has indicated, we would like to be able to use the existing shed. Right now, we're looking at a huge piece of cement back there with nothing on it. It's kind of gross looking. We want to improve the property, and erecting the shed would allow us to do that. We think it would add aesthetic value, aesthetic appearance to the property, as well as hopefully improve the price of the property values. So that's our reason for the request. The shed, the existing slab is there. You can see where the shed was at. We just want to be able to use that existing slab.
And to clarify, and I mentioned this to any one of you who would like to comment, mention it just for the record, is that there's a 1979 City of Troy building permit issued to allow the construction of the previous structure, which put the foundation in place.
Yes, we were aware of that. The realtor had notified the Fords as she was doing due diligence and reviewing the records prior to the purchase of the property. We were aware of that.
You're aware of the voting, the variance issue, or the potential issue for there possibly be a setback issue?
No.
You're aware of the permit existing?
The neighbors can confirm that, in fact, a shed had been erected in 1979.
Sure, I understand.
So I don't think there was any indication by finding a permit for the construction of a shed and knowledge from other neighbors that there was a shed, that there was a variance issue.
Okay, all right, thank you. Just want it for the record. Is there anything else you'd like to add? No? Okay. What I'd like to do is stand pat for just a minute, and I'd like to open this up for any board members who might have a question for you immediately. Is there any member of the board who has a question for the applicant or their counsel? Seeing none, I'm going to ask you to return to your seats. And,
Thank you.
Mr. Evans.
Mr. Chair, one thing I should mention, the permit that I referred to from 1979 indicates that the shed was supposed to be 3 feet from the side property line. Now, I understand from the applicant that indeed that's not the case, but the board should be aware that there was something approved that allowed something different than what would be approved today.
Okay. As a kind of a follow-up to that, I apologize for not asking ahead of the meeting. I don't know if you can speak to this. Is back in 79, was there a different code requirement?
I'm going to have to presume there was, because there was no variance granted for this shed, and the permit was issued clearly stating it's going to be 3 feet from the side property line.
Understood. All right, thank you. At this time, I'd like to open up the public comment period for this particular item. Is there anyone who's in the gallery, or in the chambers rather, who would like to speak on this issue? Nope. Sir, please come forward.
My name is Philip Rowe. I live at 2703 Williams Drive, right across the street from Linda and Paul. Since they've moved in, their property value, our property values continue to go up, but they always keep their lots clean. And like me, with generators and snow blowers and lawn mowers and what have you, they need someplace to put it. And I would like to hope that you would grant them the opportunity to put this shed up in place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the matter? Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public comment session. And I'm going to bring this back to the board for discussion. Is there anyone who has any thoughts on this matter? Mr. Courtney?
Well, it seems like they can put a shed in, it just would be half on the cement and half off. So it seems kind of a waste to do that rather than use the foundation that's there.
Yeah, my thoughts on the matter. Mr. Bloomingdale?
Yes, in regard to easements, the picture I have, and I think that one shows the same thing, they clear the easement in the back, and I'm a little curious as to if there's any utilities on that side of the property, or if they come in the other side, if anybody knows that. Let's assume that it's over utility. Do they have the obligation to move that shed if they have to service it?
Well, that would be up to the easement holder.
Okay. For an example, you mean like in a use an example, Mr. Bloomingdale. Let's say DTE was doing tree trimming for their lines. Are you saying something like that may trigger something?
I'm talking about underground.
Underground, yeah. Yeah, before, I did ask a query question. We don't know at this point if there was any underground utilities ran back there. But,
I got a couple comments.
Mr. Krant?
Well, there's a couple things. Number one, I'm sure if that foundation's there and there were any utilities underneath, that would have been discovered long ago. This has been a long-standing foundation. Second, since it was a building code years ago to allow a shed 3 feet, now it jumped to 6 and you're at 5. The hardship I'm looking for is something to do with the being approved before, and all you're doing is replacing something that was. What I find, though, for the actual the reason for variance would be quite a few, but the one I want to focus on is the proposed variance will not be harmful or alter the essential character of the area in which the property is located, will not impair adequate supply of light and air to the adjacent property, or unreasonably increase the congestion of public streets, or increase the danger, let me put glasses on there, of fire, or endanger public safety, or unreasonably diminish or impair established property value within the surrounding area, or in any other respect impair public health, safety, comfort, morals, or welfare of the inhabitants of the city. And we're talking about 1 foot here. We're not talking, it's going to be encroaching on anything. I would move to approve after comment.
Yeah, I'd like to, I may be revisiting your comments for a motion, but I want to make sure the rest of the board has a chance to speak. Is there any other members of the board who want to make a comment on this matter? Seeing none, Mr. Krent, would you want to put your statements in the form of a motion?
Yeah, I would just say approve based on item E of our variance standards.
Second.
Moment. Mr. Eisenbach, are you seconding the motion?
Yes, I second it.
Mr. Evans, we have a motion on the floor to approve the petition, and we have a second from Councilmember Eisenbacher. Could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't sure whether it was entered in the record or not, and I may have missed it, but we also want to make sure we mention the unusual shape of the property is also another factor in the approval of the, assuming there's a majority to approve it, so.
So the motion would be item E, and it would also
I
be...
don't think it has to be included in the motion, just so it's in the record for future purposes.
No, thank you. Thank you. It's a good point. Thank you very much. Mr. Evans, could you call the roll, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Krent?
Yes.
Mr. Eisenbacher,
Yes.
Mr. Bloomingdale,
Yes.
Mr. McCown,
Yes.
Mr. Courtney,
Yes?
Mr. Lambert,
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes. Congratulations. You could have a good luck with your new shed. Moving onward, we have no additional cases tonight, and as far as additional communication, I have none, although you did receive your Planning Michigan packets, so there is some information about planning policies and changes statewide. I encourage you all to review that. Is there any additional communications that a board member would like to bring forward, or anything from city staff? No? Under item 6, miscellaneous business, we have no miscellaneous business tonight. And I'd like to also now open up for public comment if there's anybody in the gallery who would like to speak to the board about a zoning issue or any other matter that interests them. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment section, and I'm going to move to item 8, which is adjournment. I'm going to call the meeting closed. Thank you for attending.